Hey friendos, it's DW. Is Microsoft an AI company now? I keep hearing this in various tech news and in keynotes and different things where Microsoft is an AI company. And I don't know where I've been for the last 25 years, but I've been using Microsoft tech for a very long time. And there's Windows and there's Office and there's even Xbox and all kinds of things that I've been using, but I would never call Microsoft an AI company. So where is this coming from? Is this just more hype? Is this just another metaverse where Microsoft's going to change their name to Microsoft.ai? I want to get to the bottom of it. So in today's episode, I'm talking to D'Arcy Lussier, good friend of mine and also partner technology strategist at Microsoft. He does a lot of work with their partners across North America, and he tries to help me answer the question whether or not Microsoft is actually an AI company now. Now, before we get into the episode, just a couple of housekeeping items. One, D'Arcy refers to my audience as a bunch of technologists and data scientists. That is not the intended audience for this podcast, although they are definitely could be included if they want to be. And lastly, we refer to the acronym LLM, which is a large language model, things like ChatGPT or Google Palm or Facebook's Llama. These are the large language models that are kind of taking a lot of the hype right now when it comes to generative AI and natural language input for text and humans to talk to computers. So that's what we mean when we say LLM is large language model. I also want to point out that today I'm wrapping the Afterthoughts episode into this existing episode. So there's just going to be one big long episode, no more bonus content. Got some good feedback the other day, and I wanted to kind of put that together. So if you have any feedback for me, please drop it in the comments in whatever platform you're listening to. I will read it, and I appreciate the feedback. And with that out of the way, let's get into episode 4 of Remember the Human. Hey man, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good, man. So let's just get right into it here. But I like to ask a simple question, which is never as simple as it sounds. When you think of the term artificial intelligence, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Oh, Terminator. I think no, but okay. So seriously, here's the thing with technology, which I think is great, is that when you think about it, this is what's great about science fiction. Everyone loves to talk about this thing, right? Like if you look at Star Trek, it's like Star Trek predicted everything, right? Star Trek predicted the cell phone. Star Trek predicted sliding doors that are motion activated, right?
Yep.
And in an interesting way, if you think about it, Star Trek predicted AI because throughout of it, it was like computer, da 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 da, and it was using natural language to
that's a good point.
to get a spaceship to do whatever it needed, right? Like we're talking about how crazy it is for like self-driving cars. They had a self-driving, spaceship at the time. But unfortunately, because of marketing and my age, Terminator is the one I go to first. Yeah. But because that was also one of the first real sci-fi examples of like what could go wrong with AI, right? You never think about. I guess there's probably some people, and maybe this is like that's showing sort of my generation, my age. There might have been people who remember. I think it was 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like I can't do that, Hal. So there's always been sort of this interesting fear around AI, this extreme around AI, right?
Yeah.
I guess even too, if you think about it, so more so maybe even for our generation, think about Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Think about droids and their ability to do things, they're autonomous, all that sort of thing. Ironically, you could do more with natural language in Star Trek than you could in Star Wars,
Yeah.
But yet they had androids. It's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of what comes to my mind when I first think about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like it's a wide spectrum of answers, but although to be fair, on the first episode, we did focus in on RoboCop a lot, so it's very similar sort of situation.
I forgot about RoboCop. Yeah.
But there's an argument there because there is a human brain in there, but it was the sci-fi bit of like they're all coming to get us. But yeah, so that's a good warm up, and I like that one because I want to talk to you. I'm always trying to answer questions about change AI is generating and producing.
Yeah.
And the question I'm trying to answer for myself right now is big tech companies right now are just all about AI. They're all claiming to be AI companies at this point. Microsoft, which you work for, being one of them. So I want to kind of hone in a little bit on that Microsoft story, but I want to see, like, what are you seeing? And like maybe you might want to introduce a bit of like what you do at Microsoft, and like what do you see around, well, like the AI space, because Microsoft is making a lot of noise about AI these days. So I want you to take it from there.
Yeah. So I think what we have to recognize is that there's a lot of attention right now to a very specific segment of AI called generative AI, and that's where you get, all the things that are OpenAI are doing, around ChatGPT and the GPT family of large language models. And so that's really happened from, I would say, for about a year, because I think they came out with ChatGPT, I want to say sometime in late summer or fall in their preview. It was around that time or sometime last year. And then Microsoft makes their big announcements in January about how, they're going to be leveraging that technology and all their different products and services and what that looks like. So the key thing that happened, I think, was we're starting to see commercialized offerings of AI and use cases that I think the majority of people can wrap their heads around. Because if you were to tell them, hey, let me tell you about the work I'm doing in AI. So I do machine learning, and what I do is I create a Jupyter notebook and I write blah, 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 and I do Python, and then I get it to look at this, and then I got to train it. People's minds, they lose them, right? Because it's so specific, it's so low level and in the weeds. I think that what's happened this year is now we've created a layer to it where it's very easily to consume. I can type into ChatGPT and I can have a conversation with AI, and it will spit something back. It will give me information. It will structure, whatever it is that I'm doing with it. And now people are realizing, oh, this is how I can actually use this in the real world. And then for businesses, we now have access to this technology, where previously, we would have needed to go that lower level with creating like a machine learning team. We would have needed like all of those roles and people, which are very, very specific to build something. We can now leverage the abstractions that are available, and we still need to invest in people and roles and skilling, but it's maybe not as high of an investment because we're able to take advantage of those abstractions, right? Now, the interesting thing, though, is that AI, from a consumption point of view, isn't actually new. So if you look at it from the Microsoft point of view, cognitive services has been around since I think it was 2016 when they renamed it from Project Oxford to Cognitive Services. And so for the last better part of a decade, we've had vision AI, we've had textual, we've had speech, we've had all these different AI services that have been available, and people have been building really cool solutions. There's a company I always like to use as an example of this. It's a Canadian company called Valet. They do a digital asset management platform. And so typically that's, you have a company, they have a lot of assets like videos, images, anything. And, think about it, you're doing a marketing campaign. So as a department, you're going to create new images, you're going to have it go through a workflow, and their system manages all of that. And they leverage AI and cognitive services to be able to do things like, tagging things and making them easily searchable and that type of thing. Well, what they did was they partnered with Jane Goodall, and we did a whole write-up. I can provide you a link if you have for footnotes and that.
Totally.
They partnered with the Jane Goodall Foundation. Jane Goodall, obviously, Gorillas in the Mist. She's the one that spent her whole life. So they've got, you can imagine how many assets that they have: videos, images, all these things about all these different chimpanzees and gorillas that they've been doing research on. They partnered with Valet. What Valet was able to do was bring all of that into their system, leverage our facial recognition AI on all of those chimpanzees. And so now if somebody from Jane Goodall is like, hey, we want to look up such and such gorilla and everything that we have on it, there you go. And the reason they're able to do that is because not somebody going in and individually tagging and saying, this is a video of gorilla 123, leveraging facial recognition to do that. That was one way of using AI to be able, in the scientific research world, to come up with a solution. So we've had solutions using AI in big tech for Microsoft. And I imagine if you talk to Google and Amazon, Google maybe, I don't know. I honestly am not as familiar with Amazon's AI journey.
Yeah.
But we've had these solutions in place. What we're seeing now is really the true commercialization of AI and making it available to a larger swath of organizations and to everyday people. We just announced how we're starting to roll out, we as in Microsoft, the Copilot features in Office and in Windows. And so, now everybody is going to be able to take advantage of Copilots in their Microsoft products. And all of our product lines, if you look at it, if you watch over the next year and announcements that are going to be coming out, you're likely going to see more and more of this Copilot idea just being a part of everything, because now AI is just going to be as natural as any other feature that we're used to in software. So
okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, actually. But so let me take that to a different kind of thing, because I always draw a lot of parallels between between AI and the metaverse, right? Like if you think about going back to the metaverse and the crypto hype or whatever you want to call that whole situation that's now fading out. Generative AI comes around. So ChatGPT, it seems to be that differentiating factor, because it is, you made that point, right? The point is it's easy for us to consume it. We can finally get it. We don't need to be a Python developer with all of this information to actually start leveraging this, but we can actually start just seeing commercialization, like mass adoption of AI. But what makes this not, what makes Microsoft's investment in like Copilot, like sharing that out, any different than the metaverse that Facebook put together, right? Because they were really deep into that and threw money at it and released it to everyone and told everyone that's the next best thing. So tell me what makes this special from your viewpoint.
The metaverse. I do a presentation where I talk about, the presentation, one of the presentations I give is specifically speaking to that. It's okay, Microsoft, you're coming out with AI, but you've had a few things in the past where here are products that you've told us are the next big thing.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we can look at Meta and the metaverse, but I mean, you and I, we've been in the MVP program, for the longest time prior and that type of thing. Silverlight.
Oh yeah.
Right. Silverlight was a big thing. I mean, I still love Windows Phone. Windows 8, that was going to be the next big paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And then even metaverse. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but I remember we did a big like keynote event type thing where we had our then the VP of that whole like metaverse, virtual net, whatever we were calling it, group. And it ended with like a virtual Burning Man desert dance party. Do you remember this?
So I don't remember the dance party. I do remember the announcement.
I will find the link.
I would love that.
At the very least, I have an actual like picture, a screenshot that I include in my presentation. And like, seriously, it looks like the worst, like combine the Me You universe of Nintendo and metaverse. And it was just weird. It was just weird. So I mean, Microsoft also has gone through those sort of things, and the same with, like you say, Facebook's done with metaverse, and even other things. Like even I noticed recently, I think is it Google that's killing their podcast?
Google Podcast in lieu of YouTube Podcast, which you can subscribe to for this one.
Yes, but there's always a bit of that thing, right? Where these come, and we have to remember that these are all companies that are bringing a product to market,
right?
And are going to be putting some sort of marketing behind it, and they're going to be prompting it to say, here's the next big thing. Everyone should get to it. And then I think that's where, are you familiar with the Gartner hype cycle?
Yep.
Yeah. So for those that aren't, look up Gartner hype cycle. It's basically this idea that something new comes up, some sort of technology that's going to disrupt something, and then there's a huge peak that comes from it, which is called the peak of inflated expectations, and then that drops into something called the trough of disillusionment.
My favorite thing.
And then it goes up to the slope of enlightenment, and then the plateau of productivity, right?
Yeah.
And I think with metaverse, you can definitely see where it was like, oh, technology trigger, peak of inflated expectations. Everyone who's been cooped up for the last couple of years is definitely want to just create an avatar of themselves and go into virtual places.
Yeah.
And no. And so then, okay, trough of disillusionment. And then where's the reality for this, right?
Yeah.
If there even is one. And I think what we saw with metaverse is that there really wasn't. The reason why I think AI is different is exactly for what I said earlier. This isn't new. We have been building on AI technologies again for the better part of a decade. And so it's not that all of a sudden this is new to the market.
Right.
What's new is the generative AI offering into the market. But AI already has been there.
Right.
We're already able with our phones to use a camera. I was camping with my family, and my wife, who's not in the technology realm, she's like, we saw some berries and we were like, I wonder what this is. This kind of looks like this one. It might be this one. And she's like, oh, well, let me check. And she pulls out Google Lens on her phone, and it's like, oh, this is what it is. Like, we've already had AI. AI is in a lot of ways already part of our everyday experience. We just might not recognize it, right? And
right.
Which is the beautiful part about the technology. It's become ubiquitous. It's just there. It's in our phones. It's in our laptops. It's in, it's there. So what we're doing is we're not introducing a brand new thing. Like when the metaverse came out, I think it was a very brand new thing from a concept as well as a delivery. What we're doing is we're adding to what's already out there. AI is already out in the wild. AI is already being used in a lot of different ways. Now we're adding generative AI. And so it's a new, interesting usage. And so I still think whenever something new comes out, I think you're still going to see some replica of the hype cycle applied, and I mean that's what we're seeing right now with generative AI. Whether you're going straight to OpenAI or whether you're using Microsoft's Azure OpenAI services, a lot of organizations, and this is what I see as part of my role. You had asked me like what I do at Microsoft. So I'm a partner technology strategist, which means I'm in our global partner solutions group. And so we work with our partner ecosystem. So all the companies, specifically for me, ISVs, who are building products and solutions on our cloud, using our services, using our technologies, everyone's really interested to say, oh, like we've got applications. How can we leverage a generative AI to deliver better user experiences, better customer experiences, and to really enhance the value that our products have. But the thing is that hype cycle isn't as severe is not the right word. It's not as exaggerated as say if we go back to the metaverse, because I would say that we're already very much on our way to. I would say we're between slope of enlightenment to plateau of productivity on AI in general.
Right.
What we've now done is added another little blip that says, oh, generative AI. And so people are going to be like, oh, how can we leverage this? And through that, we're going to understand, ultimately what it can do, what it can't do, what are the true use cases. And the difference is we have been, again, for the better part of a decade, if not more, already been doing AI and software development.
Right.
This is adding another tool to our tool belt to be able to deliver those solutions.
Okay.
I want to add one more thing because this was something because we're talking about the hype cycle and everything else, and Satya's been in the news recently just for his really great candor and being really open and frank about things.
He
did Satya.
Oh, Satya Nadella, the CEO.
Satya Nadella. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
He did an interview recently. I'll find the link again it's a YouTube video, and so you can put it in the footnotes. But there was an interview with him, and then also an interview with the CEO of OpenAI. But he said something that I love. And it was a quote that I actually took and I put into that presentation that I do. And he said, "We in the tech industry are classic experts in overhyping everything." So
that's
and which he gets
wrong.
It's part of the thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think that it's really important, that he's even acknowledging that, because I think the question that was posed to him is very similar to what we're talking about. Like why is this revolutionary? And I think that's really the key, is people understanding the history, specifically from when it comes to Microsoft, the history that we already have with AI. to understand that, yes, this is a major milestone. It's a major announcement. But we've had, like, in addition to cognitive services, there was a whole team that was built internally at Microsoft to look into specifically how do we leverage large language models within our products and services at Microsoft. Like that was a Microsoft initiative. Microsoft has built LLMs with other partners like NVIDIA. So it's not, people might also just think, oh, well, this is a Microsoft OpenAI thing. Yes, that was one stream, but we had multiple streams in parallel at Microsoft working on generative AI, again, for the better part of a decade.
So that actually kind of leads towards where I was going to go with it, because I think that OpenAI has kind of consumed the conversation, right, with ChatGPT, and that was that. Then Microsoft acquires, massive chunk of them, and then this is kind of, so they don't own they own a piece of them, don't they?
We invested in them.
Okay.
And we invested. And we entered into an exclusivity agreement with them.
Okay.
See, that's interesting because you're right. So what's the difference between if you invest in a company to saying you're owning a company? Because one of the, like, for instance, do we own GitHub? Yes. Like GitHub is a Microsoft thing. But it's interesting you frame it that way. And actually, that's something I'll take away and kind of look into a bit more, because we don't use that verbiage internally at Microsoft.
Okay.
Like we don't say, at least I haven't heard, oh yeah, we're part owners of OpenAI. No, we've invested in them.
Okay.
And we have agreements with them.
Okay.
But they're their own company. They're their own thing. So let me give you a really quick, if I can, a bit of a history of kind of the key highlights of what happened. So
sure.
OpenAI was founded back in 2015. So they were their own thing. They started off, interestingly enough, when I don't know the details of what their structure looks like today, but when they were founded and opened in 2015, it was actually started as two different groups. One that was basically a not-for-profit, and then one that was a for-profit arm.
Okay.
And part of that was because they recognized early on, like, yes, there's a lot of potential in the technology they were building for the good and the bad, and they never wanted it to become something where potentially the negative, I'll say, capitalistic side of things, overtakes it, right? They wanted to own that one piece and keep it separate. So how they are today, I'm not sure, but that's how they were founded. And the reason I say I'm not sure is because part of that for-profit subsidiary, one of the things they put is that profit would be capped at 100 times the investment. And then Microsoft in 2019 invested $1 billion, which kind of blows that cap into a different stratosphere. So I don't know how it works now. So that was 2015. In 2016, Microsoft hired Kevin Scott as the CTO.
Right.
He was brought in through the LinkedIn acquisition. Got promoted in, and then it was really through Kevin Scott and his connections in the Bay Area that he went to Satya and was like, hey, this OpenAI thing is something we should really look into. He kind of brokered that introduction between Satya and Sam, I think is his name, the CEO of OpenAI. And that led to, in 2019, where Microsoft invested $1 billion into OpenAI, and then also entered into exclusivity deal. And what that exclusivity deal meant was OpenAI would only host their technology on Azure.
Okay.
And then as part of that, Microsoft would work with OpenAI to help develop the technology, and then they would be the ones that would be able to benefit and incorporate that technology into their product, which is what we're seeing with the co-pilots in Office and Windows and that type of thing. So this was a very active partnership on both ways. So in 2020, Microsoft actually created a supercomputer. And why I say supercomputer is because, we have Azure, which is obviously our cloud network, and you could say that those are very supercomputers. This was a very specific supercomputer built specifically for OpenAI and Microsoft to work on large language model generative AI technology. And interestingly enough, there's a website. Again, I'll find the link. You can put it in the footnotes. It tracks the largest supercomputers in the world.
Okay.
And so when we built this one, we were in the top 10. It was 285 CPUs and 10,000 GPUs.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
that was, yeah. And so this is part of, what we did to invest in OpenAI, so that they could develop it, we could also develop, and then we could jointly leverage the goodness of all that. If you look at that list today, that computer is not in the top 10, and it's really crazy, but it's crazy. I haven't looked at it recently, but when I was doing prep for my talk from a few months ago, it was like over 3 million CPUs or something like that, was like the largest one. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy, huge supercomputers. Anyway, but we did all that investment, and then 2023, obviously we announced more investment, multi-year, multi-billion-dollar investment in OpenAI, and then we also announced how we were incorporating it. So
Okay.
So that's just to give you a history of Microsoft and OpenAI, and the relationship there is, this is something that, again, if people just only heard the announcement in January, they would think, oh, they came up with an agreement and that was it. We've been working with them for the past, since around 2018, 2019.
Okay.
So it's a multi-year journey that we've been on with them.
Okay. So, but to take that point though, so that's still that's where I'm kind of going with. So they partnered. They didn't own them. So you guys don't own them. I knew that much. But so
I'll get clarity on like what that means from like investment. Does investment mean ownership or what? But yeah, we don't use that
terminology. Well, that makes a huge difference, right? So there's a difference between, even if you own 49%, which I think is what they own, like officially. If you look at look at the spreadsheets, you own, like, Microsoft owns 49%, which is not owned, right? They're a massive investor with an exclusivity agreement. But what makes, so if OpenAI is this company that they've invested in and partnered with, it's a separate entity though. Like, what makes Microsoft an AI company? Because they had cognitive services, or they still have cognitive services. Yeah. And they clearly, and as you pointed out, they were investing in LLMs and large language models and doing their own. Yet they brought in OpenAI and they invested heavily, which is, I would assume, this is my assumption, is that they would kind of focus on that investment, because that wasn't no small chunk of money they threw at them. You know what I mean? Like, so talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind. Like how is Microsoft an AI company, even though OpenAI is an AI company?
Well, I think so. The fact that we have had cognitive services for so many years, I mean, those are legitimate AI. So let me take a second just to kind of walk through. So for those who are watching this, on the video, you're going to see a screen here. For those of you listening, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through kind of what we're seeing, what we're talking about. So your question around what makes Microsoft an AI company. So we don't. It's that thing again where if you just focus on OpenAI and you think, oh, is that all we've done? It's like, well, no, we haven't. We've been doing a lot of things for a long time.
Right.
So what I'm showing you here is sort of a very high level of the different stratas in what we would consider to be Azure AI, and then also where they play, right? So from an applications and an applications platform point of view, across M365 and Dynamics, and then also our partner solutions. This is where we have our Power Platform, which is like Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and our Power Virtual Agents. And this is what we like to call our low-code platform, right? Okay. And so this is really mainly targeted at business users, where they're able to leverage this platform to be able to do things without needing to understand the coding. And if you look at a lot of the features and functionality built in, there's this level of AI that allows it to do those things as a low-code platform. If we take it a step lower, which I think is really more kind of where your audience here is that developers and data scientists. And so we have three different stratas there. So we have what we call scenario-based services, and that's like our bot service, our cognitive search, our form recognizer, our video indexer, metrics advisor, immersive reader, and other services. And that's where these are really like for specific use applied AI services. So video indexer is a great example of that, where you have a video, you want to be able to index certain things that happen throughout it, or you want to identify certain pieces of the discussion that's going on, and that service can do that. Then you have one level below, which is the customizable AI models. And so that's where, and this is what we really call cognitive services. So you want to add a vision API. You want to be able to, you're building the next, what was it called? Seafood.
Okay.
Do you get the reference? No? Okay. So in the TV series Silicon Valley, there was an episode where they came up with this thing called seafood, but it
the
was
hot dog
SEE
thing.
food.
Yeah.
And so they were like, yeah, it'll identify food, but the only thing it could identify was hot dog or not hot dog, right?
Hot dog or not hot dog.
and people actually built, like, oh, let's build this out with it. So, like, vision, obviously you can do more with it than just that. But speech, language one obviously is great for, and we leverage that in our own products, where translation services. So somebody speaking in one language goes through, the language cognitive service and is able to, either generate text or even possibly translate it. So that's where we would put the Azure OpenAI service bit as well, as part of this sort of cognitive services strata, because it's something that is being made to be consumable, right? Again, we're abstracting a lot of what makes that AI magic happen, so that an end developer can take that and leverage it within their application. So if you want to be able to have natural language conversation with your application, that's all that work that's gone into developing these large language models and making it available so that you can integrate it within your application. That's that cognitive services strata, right?
Right.
So we've had a history of already building all of these, and then even one level below is we have our machine learning platform. So if you're like hardcore data scientist, you are maybe one of the people developing your own LLMs, and that's actually a really good point. Is you hear a lot about the commercial offerings around LLMs, whether it's stuff coming out of OpenAI and the partnership with Microsoft, whether it's the Llama's LLMs with Meta, and then other ones. There's also a whole open source community that's been developing LLMs. There's also a whole bunch of people who are maybe not as commercially noticeable as big tech who have been developing LLMs. Right. So there's a whole platform there that we support for developing custom AI on Azure.
Right.
It may not. That's not going to get the same sort of press as being able to type in. There was a demo, I think, in January, right, where it was like, I want to create a PowerPoint for my daughter's birthday and use the pictures from my OneDrive photo folder, and I want it to have this type of theme. Boom, and it creates a PowerPoint. Well, somebody sees that and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing."
That's magic.
Again, that's magic. That wouldn't get the same play if it was like, let me walk you through a Jupyter notebook, or something like that, right? Where you're doing the lower level. Yeah. So this is why when I say, Microsoft is an AI company, is because we have been for a long time. We've already developed a whole suite of products and services that are AI based, tooling for developing AI on our platform. Now we're adding Azure OpenAI services to that, but we're adding. This isn't something that we're now just saying, oh, this is brand new. I mean, it is brand new, but that piece is brand new. We've got a long legacy and history where we've been doing AI.
That actually helps clarify a little bit for me. A lot actually clarifies a lot, to be perfectly honest. Like seeing where it fits into that diagram. So again, for folks that are listening, available in the show notes. But the idea, like my conclusion from what that diagram showed, was it's not so much when someone says they're an AI company, like OpenAI. I said at the beginning, OpenAI is an AI company, but let me correct that. OpenAI is a generative AI company. They do generative AI exceptionally well, and Microsoft has invested in that.
Yes.
Microsoft, as a cloud provider, has been providing AI solutions of all kinds. OpenAI's service catalog is just another. I don't want to trivialize, but it's another offering. Generative AI is a new offering. You kind of pointed that out earlier.
Yeah, I think that the key thing with generative AI is that unlike the other AI services we have, it probably has the widest set of use cases that you can use, right? Yeah. And I think that's kind of what's different, and that's why people have really attached to it. Yeah. Because if you're doing something with the Vision API for cognitive services, that's very specific. If you're doing something with speech, if you're doing something with language, all of those are very specific things. But with generative AI, there's such a wide range of things you can do with it. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people too, like they hear ChatGPT and they think, oh, ChatGPT is, what Microsoft is using or what we're doing. And then you start breaking it down and recognize, well, ChatGPT is actually an application.
Yep.
And that application is using LLMs, large language models underneath. And then even when you look at, oh, well, is it GPT-4? Is it GPT 3.5 Turbo? Or, is it Codex? I don't think it's still being used, but I think they have newer ones even for code creation. But is it Codex?
Yep.
But then you have to break it down even more, because GPT-4 isn't the LLM. It's the family of LLMs. And then you have individual LLMs underneath. So like even when you're going into Azure OpenAI services, you can say, oh, I want a GPT-4 family. Oh, well, which one do you want? And then you still need to have that understanding of, well, what are the benefits or what are the specific uses for each one of those languages? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Also, what are the different pricing model that we have? All that type of thing, before you can leverage it, and then using it however you want. So, there's. But again, I think that the concept, all of that aside, all of the nitty-gritty details, the concept of what generative AI can do, where you're now using natural language to interface with a computer, with a machine, and it will do something and understand you, like that's pretty remarkable.
Okay. Honestly, I think that's a really good way to kind of start bringing it down here. That was a good, thank you for all that.
I've got one more thing I want to talk about, though. Oh. I've got a thing I want to talk about. So you finish your questions, and then I'm going to bring up one more thing.
Okay. Well, here's your one more thing, because I think I've got enough information here to actually help educate that's educated me right now, which is the whole point of this. So what else can you educate me on, D?
So one of the things, your question was, what makes, Microsoft an AI company? And I think one of the key things as well, and it's something that we don't just say as, just for the sake of it, or because we think it's, a nice thing to do, but something that's really, truly baked into everything we do about AI is responsible AI.
Okay.
So we recognize, like very, very early on, like when you talk about, you see all these interviews that are going on, and you see all the talk. So it goes back to the initial thing when you think of AI, what do you think about? And I said Terminator
first thing,
because that's the extreme, right? And the machines are going to become sentient, and all of a sudden terrible things will happen. And so there's a lot of discussion right now, whether it's at government policy level, whether it's just in the general population discussion, whether it's in technology circles, even the CEOs, where they're coming forward and signing these letters of, we must, all this sort of thing, right? What that is really ultimately boiling down to is this idea of responsible AI, and this idea that if we have to recognize that the tool and the potential of AI does come with risks, and it does come with inherently misuse that could happen.
Right.
The example that I give in my in that talk is I found this great website, and this website was I gave this talk in the States, by the way.
Okay.
I found a website, and it was, I asked generative AI and image generation AI to show me what Europeans think people in every state look like. and so I shared some of them with them, and we happened to be in Atlanta, so I shared the Georgia person. It was basically this guy that looked like Luke Duke sitting in a peach orchard. And then there was the one for Louisiana was a guy who was sitting like at a table with a bunch of crawfish in front of him. The one for North Carolina was like a very kind of preppy looking guy next to a barbecue with like a nice house in the background. And then Florida, I kid you not, it totally went to like a Florida man kind of
wow.
Stereotype. Yeah, like it was
off the rails.
Yeah, just off the rails. But I went through that, and so we had a good laugh about that. But then I went back and I said, so here's the thing, though. I went through all 50 of those images for all the states in the U.S., and out of all those images, everybody was white.
So there you go.
So when we talk about responsible AI, and we talk about things like image generation, or even responses in text that we're asking it to generate, how are we ensuring that this AI isn't being built with biases built in? How are we ensuring that it's not going to act in a way that could be detrimental? Do you remember Hey AI?
Hey AI? No.
Hey AI. So KAI was that amazing idea, and this goes back again to, you know, what I love about Microsoft is we definitely, like, we will try and we will experiment and we will absolutely acknowledge when sometimes we get it wrong. This was the thing where we put out an AI chatbot and decided to release it as a Twitter account to interact with people on Twitter.
Yes. Please tell this story. I now remember.
And what could go wrong, right? I grabbed a screenshot of an article and it was like, Twitter taught Microsoft's AI chatbot to be a racist bleep in less than a day. And it was terrible. We had to take it down because it was so toxic. And so that was bad. But you know what, I think that was one of the key things where, you know, not only us, but anyone can look at it and say, oh, there are real ramifications of how we use AI. There are real things that we have to consider. So what Microsoft has done is they've actually created a framework, which is a responsible AI framework. And it covers a number of different things. So we look at fairness, we look at reliability and safety, we look at privacy and security, we look at inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability, and how you can think of all of these things within the AI solutions that you're creating.
Right.
And it's actually something that we lead with. So when we have a customer or partner come to us and they're like, your AI stuff sounds really great, we really want to use it.
Yep.
Yes, we talk about the technical things and you know, art of the possible, but we always talk about responsible AI. We lead with responsible AI. We have safeguards built into our OpenAI services that you would need to opt out of that build responsible AI in by default. And that's to ensure that, you know, doing our part as the provider to ensure that we're trying to help as well, right? We're not just saying, okay, OpenAI is here, you should probably do these as best practices. Okay, good luck. Like, we recognize that we have an active role to play with that as well. So, you know, to that end too, and again, I'll give you the link, and we have a whole portal that has all the different resources, the different details on the framework, different activities that you can do to, you know, become more aware of responsible AI, learn for yourself, for your team. Brad Smith, who is our head legal and also one of the presidents at Microsoft, he actually co-wrote a book called Tools and Weapons, The Promise and the Peril of the Digital Age. We're being at the forefront to say, yes, we're really excited about AI. We're really excited about what generative AI can do. But we also really need to be talking about how to use this responsibly, and to make sure that we're covering that. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that on this talk about AI, because I think that if we close the loop from the Terminator all the way to the end, it's, you know, AI has a lot of amazing things that it's going to be able to do. I think that with generative AI being added to the list, we're going to see even more interesting use cases and ways of using AI that we haven't even thought of yet. But we need to do that in a responsible way. So making sure that people are thinking of that and aware of it.
Okay. Wow, that was a lot. That's great. That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, D'Arcy. Like, I appreciate this a lot.
Hey, thanks for having me. No, this is fun. This is great.
So just before we close it out here, do you have anything you want to hype up?
So you're probably listening to this sometime before November. If you're in the Calgary area, I've got my software development conference called Prairie DevCon happening at Calgary at the end of November. It's 2 days. We've got over 30 sessions, over 20 speakers on a wide variety of technology topics. So you can go to prairiedevcon.com/Calgary to get all the information there. Also, from a Microsoft point of view, we've got Microsoft Ignite coming up in the middle of November. In person, it's 14th to 17th, and then online, it's November 15th to 16th. So I would anticipate we're going to have some pretty cool announcements that are going to be happening at that event. So if you are looking for more announcements, either around AI or other topics than that, I would definitely encourage people to check that out. And yeah, I think that's the main two things coming.
Awesome. Well, thanks, D. We're gonna.
Thanks, Dave. This was great.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep. That was a great conversation with D'Arcy, and I really do think it helped me answer the question: is Microsoft an AI company? And my answer to that is not really. I get the idea, though. I think Microsoft is a company that invests heavily in AI, but to go as far as to say they're an AI company, it's a bridge a little too far. I think they are deeply invested in AI, and they are going to popularize AI by weaving it through their entire platform of tools and programs and operating systems. Microsoft is a massive company. AI is just one key pillar of their entire platform. D'Arcy walked through the entire Azure platform as a whole and how they've been developing AI for a long time. I get this now. I get why people are saying this, why Microsoft is an AI company all of a sudden. Because they've had AI level products for a very long time, going back the last 10 years or so with cognitive services. It's probably an over-exaggeration, but they've been doing this for quite a while, and they've been working with companies like OpenAI for a while. Now, the interesting thing is OpenAI is an AI company, and I do think they are truly and purely an AI company. I think Microsoft is investing deeply in AI, and AI is going to be their big marketing pitch, their big hype product, their big thing they're going to be pushing for the next while. They have a whole suite of products that are coming out, right? It makes a lot of sense to drive the message on that. But to bring it all the way back, and if I look back in 10 years or 20 years, or is Microsoft an AI company now? I don't think so. I think Microsoft is a giant tech company that invests heavily in that AI and will be pushing it forward and will be leveraging it through their entire suite of applications. But I think Microsoft is just big tech as it is. They're not purely AI. But there was a couple of interesting points that I think D'Arcy made about this that I think leaned into that a little bit more about why it's not exactly what I think it was. So one, their vocabulary around the ownership of OpenAI. Now I looked this up afterwards, and from what I can gather, they do own about 49% of OpenAI. Like, that's what the media is saying. That's what the contract apparently said, but there's no final say on that from what I could find. But there are some links in the show notes. But what's interesting about it is how they refer to them as partners. So they don't have they didn't acquire OpenAI. They own part of OpenAI, a large part, and they're exclusive, but they don't actually control the entire company. They just have a big, they have a big stick to wield. The other one is, I think it's interesting to see that AI is not just another metaverse. This is kind of a side tangent. But Microsoft isn't just jumping into the hype in the same way. Are they riding the marketing wave and riding the hype train? Absolutely. Any company would. Free marketing is great marketing, especially when you're at the top of that crest with that whole Gartner hype cycle we talked about for a little while. And OpenAI and ChatGPT being the example of that sort of technology of generative AI, you might as well ride it all the way to the bank. I get that. Does that make them a Microsoft? Does that make Microsoft a AI company? Absolutely not. Did Facebook, even though they changed their name to Meta, become a metaverse company? I don't think so. It's the same idea. These are large tech companies that will ride their waves when they're happening. Going back to the original thing, is Microsoft an AI company? No, but they are deeply invested in it. And I can see why it's a core pillar of their business and will continue to be a core pillar of their business for a very, very long time. And with that, I'm going to draw this episode to a close. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and have yourselves a pleasant day and or evening, and take care. Subscribe, follow, and learn more at www.rememberthehuman.ai.